All right, welcome. Today, we're jumping into something truly groundbreaking, an idea that's really changing the game in neuroscience. It's called the REBUS model, and it's a fascinating new way to explain how psychedelics can, well, literally reboot the brain. So just think about this for a second. Imagine your entire worldview, all your deepest beliefs about yourself and how things work. Imagine it's all a perfectly settled scene inside a snow globe. It's been the same for years, predictable, stable. But what if you could just pick it up and give it one massive shake? Everything swirls, and all those pieces get to resettle in a totally new, maybe even better, way. That, right there, is the core idea we're going to unpack. Now, before we get to the big shakeup, we've got to understand how the brain works on any given Tuesday. See, your brain isn't just a passive camera recording what's out there. No, it's much more active. It's constantly building your reality. I mean, think about it. You're not consciously noticing every single blade of grass or every tiny sound. Your brain's already made a guess about what's probably there based on past experience. And honestly, this is a brilliant energy-saving trick. It creates a stable, reliable world so we're not overwhelmed by a fire hose of sensory data every second of the day. So what are the building blocks of this prediction machine? Well, they're called priors. Priors are basically the brain's rulebook. They're your deeply held beliefs, your assumptions, your mental shortcuts about everything. The world, other people, and especially about who you are. Here's the kicker. These priors don't just influence your reality. They pretty much are your reality. You can kind of picture it like a company's org chart. At the very top, you've got your big picture beliefs, the CEO, let's say. Those are the strong teal arrows you see, the top-down predictions. They're sending memos down the chain, telling all the other parts of your brain what to see and what to ignore. This top-down control is what keeps the whole system humming along, nice and orderly. Okay, so order is good. But what happens when that order becomes too strict? What happens when the CEO turns into a full-blown dictator who refuses to listen to anyone else in the company? And this is where things can really start to go wrong. In conditions like depression or addiction or OCD, certain negative priors get way too powerful. Beliefs like I'm not good enough or nothing will ever change become pathologically overweighted. They basically trap the mind in these incredibly tight, repetitive loops of thought that feel impossible to break out of. And when the system is that rigid, it's like its surface has been frozen solid. So any new information, a piece of good news, a compliment from a friend, even a breakthrough in therapy, it's like a tiny ball hitting a block of ice. It just thuds. It makes no impact, creates no ripples, because the system is just too locked in to let anything new in. So the big question is, how do you thaw that frozen surface? Well, this is where psychedelics come into the story, and not as some kind of magic wand, but as a very specific kind of catalyst for change. And the REBUS model explains how. REBUS. It stands for Relaxed Beliefs Under Psychedelics. It's a pretty clever acronym, right? And the model is really elegant. It suggests that what these substances do is very specific. They temporarily loosen the grip of those super powerful high-level beliefs. Basically, they tell the brain's dictator CEO to go on vacation for a little while. And this isn't just a metaphor. There's real brain science here. Psychedelics work by targeting specific serotonin receptors, the 5-H2A receptors. And guess where those receptors are most dense? You got it, in those high-level CEO parts of the brain. Activating them basically dials down the precision or the confidence level of your strongest beliefs. It makes them feel less absolute, more questionable. The scientists behind this model actually used this famous line from a W.B. Yeats poem to capture this feeling perfectly. The center cannot hold. For a little while, that central organizing force of your mind, your ego, your sense of self, it just loses its iron grip. So, with the CEO out of the office, the whole top-down structure flattens out, and this creates what the researchers call the anarchic brain. Now that sounds dramatic, but it's not about chaos in a bad way. It's about freedom. It's a state where communication can finally flow from the bottom up. So what does that look like? Remember those deep, worn-out mental ruts our thoughts get stuck in? Well, under a psychedelic, that whole landscape flattens out. The deep canyons become shallow plains. All of a sudden, your brain isn't being forced down the same old miserable path. It's free to wander, to explore, and to make brand new connections that were literally impossible just a few hours before. That frozen, solid surface, it becomes a liquid. Now, that same little input that used to just thud, it creates huge ripples that spread across the entire system. Your brain becomes incredibly plastic, incredibly sensitive. It enters this prime state for learning, for revision, where even small insights can have a massive impact. And here's the most important part of all. This temporary state of freedom isn't just some weird trip. It's a critical window of opportunity. It's the moment the system can actually be rebooted for lasting change. So the therapeutic path becomes crystal clear. First, you relax those rigid beliefs. That allows all this suppressed info, memories, emotions, new ideas, to finally bubble up to the surface and be heard. This flood of new data can lead to these incredible aha moments, these profound insights. And then, as the drug wears off, the system starts to settle again. But this time, it can settle around newer, healthier, more flexible beliefs. And the way people describe this is just wow. They use this incredibly powerful language. They talk about feeling like a heavy, concrete coat has finally been taken off. Or they feel re-energized and truly free, sometimes for the first time in decades. Ultimately, the REBUS model gives us this incredible new way of thinking not just about psychedelics, but about our own minds. It really drives home the idea that the reality we all live in every single day is constructed by our beliefs. And it leaves us with a pretty mind-bending question to chew on. If you could, which of your beliefs would you choose to revise?